Sean, welcome to the Take Flight podcast.
So thank you for having me.
Hey, this is great. As I was saying to you just before we started the episode there, we've not had a comedian on, so really excited to hear your insights, your experiences with both performance and also with mental health. Thankful to Calm for introducing us. So it's going to be a great chat.
Yes, I look forward to it. I might have to, midway through, charge my laptop because I've forgotten that it's low on battery. But there you go. Right.
Do you want to plug it in now, or are you okay?
Shall I do that? Shall I? Yeah, I'll just be quick. I'll do that now.
Okay.
Yeah. Right, it will take me 1 second. I've just got to go and get it.
That's fine.
Here we are.
I might, while you're doing that, just go to the toilet. So
there we go.
Leaving halfway through.
You're going to go now?
I might nip to the toilet quickly before we start. We will start in a minute, I promise.
Yeah, no worries.
Hey, mate.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, computer plugged in, yeah, already?
Good.
Okay. I might just start again.
Okay, fine.
Sean, welcome to the Take Flight podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Mate, thank you so much for doing it. I was saying before we started that it's something I've been looking forward to doing. We've never had a comedian on before. So to hear your perspectives and how you prepare to perform and just what it's like. I mean, it's one of the scariest things to do. So really looking forward to that. And then specifically the mental health side of things as well. So Karma have been great to introduce us, and it'll be great to hear that as well. I think this is actually going to go out close to Mental Health Awareness Week, which is in May. So mate, thanks so much. Where are you at the minute?
I'm in my bedroom in my flat in Shepherd's Bush. There you go. So I sounded like I was about to give you my address. Shepherd's Bush is probably too much detail, but there you go.
Oh, it's superb. So when did you start doing stuff with Calm?
I did stuff with Calm, actually. How it started was, I think, which came first? I think it was this, it was the show. There was a show on Dave, which was, again, it was to help awareness, mental health. No, it wasn't for men in particular, but it was a show where stand-up comedians do a gig and then sort of discuss mental health in between those, in between their sets. And then after that, I did some sort of online gig, and then I've done various sorts of, I've done the 10K run. I did a pathetic attempt at the walk. There was meant to be a long walk, and I didn't really measure it, and I just did the walk. This is terrible. I did the walk until I thought that was a really long walk, and then posted it and realised that wasn't a really long walk. It was terrible.
Was this the night walk that they did?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I didn't even realise it was meant to be at night. It's absolutely terrible.
You just went round the park or something.
I walked. I thought I sort of walked to Richmond from Shepherd's Bush, but I did the run. I did the run. The run is harder than the walk. I did the
run. They do such great stuff though, don't they? I mean, it's great you're an ambassador, and I've done lots of work with them. I've been hosting events for them over the last few years and doing as much as I can to support. And I see they do great stuff with Dave as well. What was it like?
And a lot of comedians as well. I think that this was actually one of the things I think that was discussed on the show. The stand-up show was, I think comedians tend to, and it might be a generalization, it might be wrong, but comedians certainly you would associate. I think you would associate anyone who thinks it's a good idea to stand up in a room full of strangers and try and make them laugh with mental health issues. I think that's an easy sort of pattern to spot.
Well, I think people often talk about, with humour, are you hiding behind something, not to go too deep straight away, but you're hiding behind some insecurity, or, I certainly saw it in myself. I was an athlete and, spent a lot of time, of course, then football was my sport. So I spent a lot of time in football changing rooms and around that kind of laddie behaviour, and you definitely lean on humour to avoid, sharing any sort of deep and meaningful thoughts instead.
Yes, absolutely. I think, it's such a male-dominated, those changing rooms that you would have been in. Absolutely, you think that funnily enough, I was having this discussion yesterday, I think, with someone that I can see that I can speak for men as one, I think, and I might be making sweeping generalizations, but men tend to use things such as, like you've perfectly, it's very apt, but football, jokes, humor, there are all these things that men sort of tend to use to sort of distract from any sort of, like you say, meaningful, truthful, authentic, emotional chat. It's a sort of anything but me, chat about anything but me. And even if we are talking about me, we'll laugh at it. In fact, I'll tell you where the conversation came from. It came from my friend. I don't know if this is of any interest, but my friend was talking about meeting, my male friend was talking about meeting another male friend for work purposes. And I just made that observation that I think men have to meet. This is, again, a generalization, but men have to meet with another purpose. Generally speaking, men can't just meet. Women can meet. Women meet up for no reason. For no reason. There's coffee involved, and that's it. They're just meeting up, and coffee is happening, and chat is happening, and meaningful, emotional chat will be, and dialogue will be exchanged. But men have to meet for football, and men have to meet either for work because there's a project, or men have to meet because there's alcohol, and the alcohol will be the thing that means that we're not actually meeting. Well, the booze, we're meeting the booze, and we're both there. I tried a line. What was the line? That men, and maybe this is about men with drinking problems, but I'm sort of half joking, that men don't really have friends. Men just have people men just have people that are there so that they're not drinking alone. And I think there's certainly an element of truth in that. There you go.
No, I think it's brilliant, mate. I love it. I know you're a big football fan, aren't you? QPR.
To be specific, I'm a big QPR fan, but I'm not a big football fan. There you go.
Yeah.
So because I don't understand what eludes me is that with QPR, that I grew up with this football team. I care passionately, incredibly, if they win, they draw, or they lose, and how they play and where we are on the table. I care so much about this for whatever crazy reason. But then I don't understand why I would then watch the Champions League semi-final with two teams, and I never understood that. But I assume that you're a big football fan, so you consume all football. But I don't understand how that works if you don't care who wins. Explain that to me, please.
Well, do you know what? It's interesting we're having this chat because I've only just recently, I'm an Arsenal fan. So I used to be the same. I only ever watched Arsenal. I only cared about Arsenal. So I was similar to you in that sense. But Arsenal are so bad now. I have to watch someone else because I don't enjoy it.
Right. I love that we're now talking about football so that we don't have to talk about anything deeper.
Immediately deflecting from the deep, meaningful chat.
Yeah. Let's talk about these. Let's talk about these 11 guys in shorts that we've never met. Let's talk about them.
It's such an easy thing to do, isn't it? Though, like if you don't know somebody or you're trying to make small talk, football is
Yes.
just the natural go-to, isn't it? It's so easy.
It's the taxi journey chat, isn't
It
it? It's the
is.
one that
Yeah.
it's how you start the chat with the
Yeah.
taxi driver.
You know,
Absolutely.
I love it though when you can tell that someone who doesn't like football, but they're so desperately trying to pretend that like they do, just to keep it going, just to try and have some
Yes.
sort of rapport.
Yes. Well, there's that bit in The Office where Brent in the Christmas special, I think it is, when Brent turns up and is talking to Finchy and Neil, and just comes in and goes, "Oh, Reading, Reading," and Finchy's like, "Fuck you talking about? You've fucking never been to a football match in your fucking life." Do you know what I mean? It's brilliant.
Oh, I'm so glad you just said that. I love The Office. I'm obsessed with it.
Incredible. The
Yeah,
best. The best. No question. The best. I mean,
yeah.
I watch. I sort of tend to be someone that rewatches my favourites more than more that is. It's quite. I think it's quite a negative thing more than is open to watching all the new comedies and
Mm.
stuff. And whenever I go back to The Office, which is probably once a year, I go back to it and I think it can't be as good as I remember it. It can't possibly be that good.
Mhm.
And I watch it, and every time it surpasses it. Really, it's so perfect. I can't think of anything that is as perfect as The Office. It's flawless. It's a work of genius.
Hmm. That's good to hear from a professional as well. I'm obsessed with it. I have friends who I'm sure you have this as well. Like more than one, which is weird, but they embody the David Brent character.
Of
Yeah,
course, I do it. We all do it.
yeah.
It's tapped into a character that represented an element of all of us, a character that was desperate to be loved, desperate to be popular. He was so desperate. Now we don't all, completely sort of. That doesn't consume all of our, our entire being, but it's part of us. And Brent was just that part of us. It's a stroke of genius. There was nothing like him, I don't think, before it. In Partridge, there are similarities, but and I think there's a bit of Partridge that's certainly in me, but
Mm.
in a lot of people I know. But just I don't know. I still think The Office is. I don't know, but if you were to ask me about what character I prefer is between Brent and Partridge, I don't know. It's probably not even worth saying. But I think that in The Office, just for me, Dawn and Tim's relationship
Mm.
is it's the greatest rom-com of all time. I think that. I think it's the greatest. I've never seen anything that surpasses it in its realism, how you believe it, how subtle it is, how beautifully acted it is, how well written it is. It's just it's perfect. The whole fucking thing is perfect.
Have you seen the Microsoft skit that they did?
Yes, I
Oh,
used to love it.
mate.
Me and my friend used to rewatch that
Yeah.
over and again. Max Walk's the name. Yeah,
I
I've
think
not seen that in
at
years.
least once a week in my house or between me and my brother, someone will say, sat there knackered at your desk. Someone will
Yeah.
say, no good to man the beast.
I've got to watch that again.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yes.
Oh, well, mate, look, I'd love to talk a little bit later on about what makes that genius as well. I'm going to make a note of that because I think that's really fascinating, and maybe whether that inspired you. And I'd love to talk about The Office for the entire chat, but
Yeah, so would I, yeah.
Sean, something that I found quite interesting during my research, and I don't know whether I've been under a rock for the last 2 years, but I had no idea about this Strictly scandal, as it were.
Oh really?
No idea. I don't watch.
How refreshing.
Yeah, I thought you might like that. I have no idea whatsoever. So you're speaking to someone who's very naive about the whole thing, but the only reason why I would like to talk about it is because I
Hmm.
assume then that is linked to the mental health side of this conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'd just love to hear your thoughts, generally sort of sweeping statements about it, and then we'll talk more about the impact if you're comfortable doing that.
Yeah. Where do I mean, my friend? Where do we start?
Um, it's a difficult. I mean, wherever you're comfortable starting, Sean. To be honest, I mean, look, if I give a bit of context for myself, if that helps. So, I struggled
Yeah.
with anxiety. I struggled with depression, and a lack of fulfillment through where I found myself in my life. And I've sort of lived with mental health for the last 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
Um, so,
So you lived with difficulties
Mm.
over the last 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and that more often than not is with anxiety, and I just put a huge amount of pressure on myself, and I think I strive for perfectionism, which is not doesn't exist. Um,
Yeah.
but there were times when it was also
Even though I've just said that the
yeah,
office, it doesn't exist unless it's the office. But
yeah.
carry on. Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, there are a few examples. The
Yeah.
Arsenal, the Invincibles. We'll go back to football chat again. Get away from this
Yeah.
deep conversation.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so I'm just fascinated to hear your journey, really, Sean, because these episodes, as much as they are going to have the take flight element of performance in it, they're also to encourage people to speak openly about what they've experienced.
Yes. Well, I still don't really know where to start. I think that, look, I agreed to do this program, which I suppose I was sort of naive to how big it was, you know. Um, and but it was a very exciting time, and it was, you know, it's such a shame that it haunts me with so many negative memories, because actually, I was having a wonderful time, and I did a show about the whole experience. Well, certainly the first week. No, yeah, about the whole experience leading up to the week after the Sun posted the or printed the picture of me and my dance partner. So up until that point, it was really, I have to say, I never enjoyed myself so much in my life.
Hmm.
I was a comedian, and I think what a lot of people forget is that it was going well and people seemed to like me. I was really having a nice time, and uh, I couldn't believe my luck, really, that I was on this program and it was going well. I was just enjoying it so much, and then on the Saturday night after I'd finished the Paso Doble, and it had gone really well and really enjoyed it. I was informed that I'd been papped,
Hmm.
kissing my dance partner when I'd been in a long-term relationship, and I was living with my girlfriend, and my dance partner Katia was married, and so this is then we've been sort of, I suppose, caught, and and then well, then I suppose from that point on my life changed. From the point I was told that, my life changed forever, I suppose.
Hmm.
And um, it's difficult because um, 2 days later, this is very hard, you see, to talk about, because my 2 days later, my ex-girlfriend um, sort of posted online a sort of statement about me lying about the kiss, and so and then that went on to other sort of public accusations. Um, about me. There was this sort of, I suppose you could say, there was this sort of image of me was built via the media. I think would be fair to say that I don't think it's so strange. You're trying to be honest here. You're trying to talk and you're trying to be honest, but you're at the same time you're so paranoid. I feel sick. You're so paranoid about the way that it will be framed. I am the sort of I'm the tabloid villain, as it were. I think I can say that about myself. After that kiss, that there's never been it's very only negative things have really ever been written about me in every way. So it's very difficult to talk openly because you just don't feel like you're being received
Well, I think that
fairly.
I completely see
But,
where
but,
you're
but
coming.
when I was in a relationship, I drank a lot. I drank a lot. Loved drinking, loved going out, loved partying, and there were various tabloid stories about some of the unfortunate antics that I got up to, and that I regret, and I was sorry for, and I was sorry for publicly, and I was sorry for privately. But I tried to keep them from my keep that from my I think you're drinking, you disassociate yourself, who you were drinking. You can sort of separate the two, who you are drinking and who you are not, and sort of sober me was having to sort of cover up, or what to myself as well, what I was getting up to. And I accept that, and I do accept that. And although you are being shamed by the papers and these stories coming out, you know, you, although of course I find it difficult, I accept that, and you do wrong and you put yourself in the spotlight, then and you pay the price for it. What I don't accept, still to this day, and struggle with, and it does haunt me, is the sort of the this idea. There's this idea. Yeah, I don't know. This notion of who I am as a person has
Mm.
been sort of drawn up and taken out of one's control, as the media can. It's the distributor of news. It's the distributor of the characters that are portrayed in those stories, and so it can write whatever it wants, really. And that's been very difficult to be frank with you. That's been very, very, very difficult to live with.
Thanks for sharing that, Sean. I mean, yeah, I can't imagine what you've gone through. Part of what I do with my business of Take Flight is coaching. I work with a lot of people who are in the public eye, athletes
Right.
who might be in who have been in the tabloids, like heavily in the
Yes.
tabloids.
Yeah.
Um, for want of a better word, influencers who have big followings who just get trolled all the time, and it's a really difficult thing to do. You're taking criticism from people you've never met before about stuff that you care about. It's your life, and it
I
doesn't.
think criticism, you know, sort of got into comedy at a strange time. When I started, there was no Twitter, certainly, or it was, it wasn't being used. And then as I got deeper into my 20s, there was trolling. It wasn't called trolling then, but you were getting the abuse for not being funny,
Mhm.
etc. So that was difficult to take and withstand. But I'm afraid that is now part of the job, and you
Mm.
either accept that and stay online, or you don't, and you come off it, and
Mhm.
you can stay online and you can ignore it, or you can respond, you can block, but you will have to put up with witnessing the abuse. I had sort of gotten used to it, because I started to believe in, you know, uh, you're live at the Apollo goes out, say, where I've stood in front of 3,500 people and I've made them laugh and had a fantastic time doing it. I know it's like the QPR player Andy Sinton said in reference to him leaving QPR for Sheffield Wednesday. You know, I know my worth, and like I was there when I had that gig.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm a delusional comic. That was a good gig. You've not had to edit in laughs at any of those points. You've not had to edit in rounds of applause. I did that.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone then tweets "you're not funny," you think it was funny. I was there. 3,500 people laughed. I don't care. This means nothing to me. And I started to sort of build a shield to it. But what came after Strictly Come Dancing was this personal abuse, this abuse of this character that had been drawn up of you that you just couldn't control. That's so.
Yeah.
You know, I had to leave my house. You're on the public transport in London on the tubes, and you see people spot you, and you become extremely paranoid of who they think you are. I've seen tweets of people celebrating that they gave me an evil look or something that I unfortunately didn't recognise. I'm very, although I sometimes do think I've received that. That's that I wasn't prepared for. I'm still not, I've still not built a shield to that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it, I think, exists in my head, but that's come from a real place. That's really difficult. Living with this idea of who you are as a person versus your act. I don't really give a shit if what people think about my act anymore. I just don't care. I know. If someone says it was shit and it was shit, then, well, that's my fault, isn't it? Maybe it was shit and I should have done a better job and it was a bad day at the office. But if someone's saying that one of the Live at the Apollos or something is shit, then I've just got no interest. It doesn't touch me.
No, listen, mate, you're a superb comic. I can't wait for everything to open up again. I'm definitely going to come and watch. You got a tour coming up, haven't you?
Now's the time of the plug. Yeah. Let's get the plug in there. He's just talked about how difficult it is living in his head. Yeah, there will. I don't know what's going on with the tour with this lockdown, but there is a tour. What's it called? It was meant to be a greatest hits, but I mean, I don't know what it would be. It's called Same Again. It was meant to be a sort of mixture of new stuff and my favourite bits, but it will be an hour of I don't know what it'll be, but it will be. I'll be there. And I'll be saying things, and hopefully you'll be laughing at the end of sentences in which I've said things. There you go.
No, I'm looking forward to it. Look, I mean, this is I don't know how this will land. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts, actually. But this is sometimes something that I speak about with clients when we're talking about this sort of stuff. When you are under scrutiny, judgment, being criticised for whatever has happened, right?
You can say wrongdoings. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. You criticize. Yeah, I get it.
But so basically, there was a study a long time ago where a group of people monitored gorillas. All right, it's a huge disservice to the human race what I'm about to say, but I'm just interested to hear how you draw, if you draw anything from it. Actually, basically, they noticed that as this group of gorillas grew beyond 100, it went into chaos. It went into anarchy, and they couldn't. Because there was leaders, because there was alphas, because there was different groups of people within this community, I suppose. At the moment it tipped over 100, they couldn't cope anymore. It was too much for them to handle. And obviously, we're far more advanced than gorillas, and our communities are far greater than that. But we're still, as human beings, only capable of so much. So, back in the days before social media, we had nice little communities, whether it was, you lived in a village, you lived in a town, or you worked in a company, and you could cope with the judgment and scrutiny of the 20 to 30 people that you might have come across that day. But now, particularly for people like yourself and, some of the people I work with who had a million plus followers,
wow,
to have that kind of scrutiny by, hundreds of people a day. In your case, it was a very, very, very intense period of several weeks where you're under pressure and, being judged, being told that you're this type of person. When, let's be honest, it's hard enough for us.
Whilst I had to learn the Charleston, I might add.
Yeah, whilst you had to learn that, which is hard enough as it is. But,
Yes.
yeah, but it's hard enough as human beings to know who we are ourselves without being told it by 1,000 people who don't know who we are anyway, and to try and distinguish between those things, I think is a really difficult thing. I heard Guy Ritchie spoke about this so articulately. He said there's two versions. There's an internal version of ourselves. There's an external version of ourselves. The internal knows who we are, so I know who I am. The external world is trying to tell us who we are. The flashing lights, everything else that's going on out there.
Yes.
And it's a distinction of trying to. You said it actually. The QPR player knows his worth.
Yeah.
When you can hold on to that internally, it's much easier to deal with all the shit that goes on out there. But when it's so loud, obviously, then it becomes overwhelming.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I
wonder as well whether it might be worthwhile talking about. I've never spoke about this on the podcast, but to touch on some of the stuff you were speaking about. You said wrongdoing. I can relate to that. I went to America and spent time playing football, and similar things happened over there, and it's the alcohol. It's very easy to pin it on that, but it was when you drink excessively. You're not in the best position to make decisions all the time.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I heard something the other day which made me think of it when you were talking, is that you can lie to others, but you can't lie to yourself. And I think eventually that catches up with you when you said you were almost covering up for.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Seann, I mean, look, I really appreciate you sharing the story. How did that manifest? Like, what were you said you were struggling to like live in your head, but how did it manifest? Like, what were the feelings that you had during that period?
I went on to, so obviously I was I'd had panic attacks in my early 20s. And I sort of managed, and they sort of went. And now and again, if I've had too much caffeine or something, they might. I remember once I found a lump that just ended up being a cyst or something, and that really, I had a panic attack. I freaked out. But the panic attacks came back, big panic attacks. I ended up having these sort of, what I later found out were called vertigo seizures, where I would become, and I had one the other day when I managed to I just lied down. I had to lie down in the street. It's quite humiliating. It's in London, so no one gives a shit.
Just step over you.
Yeah, pretty much. But I have to relive what happened. Still, it sort of, I can be okay, and then suddenly the memories of it all come back, and I can't stop thinking about it, and it sort of, it defeats me and beats me, and until the place starts spinning and I lose balance and fall, and then I start screaming. So I still get them. They're less frequent. I never had them before. I'm on some sort of anti-anxiety, anti-depression. It's called sertraline, but to try and help with that. For me, the big one is exercise. Is what helps me. Really helps me deal with that. But it was suicide. I wanted to be a comedian pretty much my whole life. As everyone does, I think, that gets involved in anything in life. You want to do it. You want to leave your mark. You don't want to leave your mark the way I left a mark, but you've got to have some sort of self-belief that you can do something special, I think, and make as many people laugh as possible. And that had gone, really. That had gone with the kiss, and the statement, really, and ongoing articles and whatnot. that seemed to have gone. You sort of live. I was a very dreamlike young man, in that I would dream of doing the Apollo, and I would dream of my sitcom. I was always living in this sort of fantasy land of what I would go on and do in my life, and suddenly, not for the first time, but certainly it was the heaviest. It was the first time that I'd so completely been living without hope. And you could think it sounds very spoilt, So all you had to do is not live with this idea that you might go on and sell out big rooms and make people laugh. But a kiss and a statement I felt like had sort of destroyed my dreams, destroyed who I was. That's how I got up in the day, and that was all gone. And who was I then going to be for the rest of my life? And it was all I really, and it still sort of is, unless I give myself stuff to do to keep myself active and busy. It's still all I think about. It's still what could have been, that what my life could have been and what I could have made of myself was gone. And what do you do? Audiences live audiences. I certainly went back on stage too early. There's nothing you could do about that, really. I was trying to combat this attack, and so I went on and was like, no, I'm going to prove that I'm all right and that I'm not what's being written about me. And sometimes audiences were a bit confused. They didn't know how to feel about me, I don't think. With time, that's gone, and I have to say the gigs have, in the most part, have gone back to being the way they were. And at my favourite club, Top Secret, it's usually just a wonderful time. When I'm at my best, there are encores. Not just I'm at my best, when the audience and me connects. There are encores. I get that brag in there. But what I'm saying is the live audience seemed to have moved on, but it's still, sometimes it's hard for me, and that's where the public, if I can call them that, they don't live with this story, this thing that they've read, flippantly. They just skim through. Oh, him, right? He seems like a cunt, and they move on with their lives.
Yeah,
you live with this, and I remember I had a really wonderful time at her favourite club, and a woman got off and she said, "I liked that. I much preferred that than when you cheated on your wife." And I just went, she wasn't my wife. You didn't even like. I'm not saying that makes it okay, but what I'm saying is that it's just what happens to this story that people don't even know. People don't even know really what's happened. There's just this idea that they know you're a cunt. That's what they know, and they don't really know why or what's happened. There's a report from journalists and sort of a point of view of who you are and what happened, and like that, and then that's gone, and that's put into the public domain, and now you're there going, well, I don't think it was exactly like that, but what am I going to do? Stop a stranger and say, sit down, let's sit down. Okay, let's sit down. I'm going to tell you my version, and then talk for the next 8 hours. I can't do that every time someone looks at me and thinks I'm a cunt. So I've just got to start live with this idea that I'm sort of battling when I'm on stage the things that have been written about me.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I have to say, if you're going, I've got to be careful to not get angry, but if, deep breath, if I do feel there's an element of me, if you're going to judge me on a personal decision that I made, and I regretfully hurt someone that I cared about, if you're going to judge me on that and you're not going to like my comedy or you're not going to like me, then fine. Don't like me on what happened, but that's up to you, and I can't do anything about that, and I don't really want to, but don't judge me on what's written about me. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with most of the stuff that I've come across written about me. I do not. So that's. I don't want to make this. I don't want to make this a sort of, that my. I don't want. I really don't want to make this my sort of. My time to stand up in court and defend myself. I'm not defending myself. I know what I've done wrong. I cheated. That's where I draw the line.
Mm.
And that's a lot of drinking and a fucking nightmare to put. If you've been the same as me in drinking to excess, then it's not fun to be with. I appreciate that. I do appreciate that. Just some fucking hungover twat on the sofa dealing with the night before. Yeah, it's all. I get that. That's not fun. But yeah.
Are you, Seann? Are you? A lot of the stuff that I've read and even the stuff that I talk about with people is like it always comes back to letting go, which is so much easier said than done. But
Yes.
I wonder if you've thought about a process of letting go. Like how does, because like when we do this again, it's easier said than done, but it can often come back to like recognizing how it's impacting you, just becoming incredibly self-aware. And when I've gone through this process, and it actually now it's difficult because I'm so acutely aware of what's happening that the slightest thing I become aware of, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm off balance again. But it can help. It can help with some bigger things. So even stuff like, I'll talk again about my example was, and you spoke earlier about trying not to get angry. I certainly had. I certainly had a lot of anger. That was the go-to emotion for me, because I had football for a long time. It was very easy to channel that into sports or even into confrontation with other people. Like that was we talked earlier about deflecting. If anyone tried to give me any stick, it would just deflect immediately.
Yeah.
And also put that under the banner of banter, to say whatever you want to someone back, just to deflect that. But then I recognised that anger was really just covering up sadness, which just hadn't been addressed. So I was just like a bit sad, a bit disappointed. And it sounds like that was, and it sounds like you might be similar in that sense. So, I mean, I lived in, again, similar to you, in a bit of a dream world, but I think that's amazing. Living in a dream world is so great. You create these ideas in your head and you bring them to reality of what a happy life to live in, until that dream world doesn't become the reality and it gets railroaded a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
So I wonder, what else did you do? You said that there's times when these episodes might happen and you have to just lie down. Like, what else have you done? And specifically, if there are people who are listening who have been struggling with mental health, who can relate to any of the things we've spoke about so far, like what else did you do?
Okay,
to cope with it?
Yeah, to cope with it.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it's been a long time. I think time.
Just do a deep breath.
I think. Well, no, I'm just sorry. No, I'm just thinking about. I think we know that the obvious one is. I just don't think drinking is going to help. If you can cut that out, because you've got to deal. I'd love a drink. Do you know what I mean? I would. I'll be honest with you. I'd love a drink and I'd love to have a good time. I don't feel like I'm there yet. I don't feel like I've healed with what's happened. It's not. I just don't think I would be able to handle the sort of chemical come down you get. I can't risk that because I'm not all right. But So I think, you've got to deal with this, and I think you have to be sober if I'm talking about a sort of trauma that I've been through, so most people will have things that go beyond their trauma, back to childhood and all of that. But I'm talking about, I suppose, a particular trauma that I think needs to be taken head on. And one of the things I've noticed recently about myself, and I don't know if this is just me, if this is people that struggle perhaps with mental health, or people, or everyone, indeed everyone, is that for what I've realised recently is it's no good just cutting out the bad things in your life. I think this is just my sort of take, and it's just my take on it from a sort of recent discovery, is that it's no good just cutting out the bad things in your life to be happy. You have to fight to be happy. That's not, that fight is just, it's just doing good to yourself. Exercising. What do you like? Exercising. Bit of structure in the day. Making sure you're eating things that are making you feel good. Fight is almost a bit aggressive, but you just have to be active in making yourself feel good. Whereas I injured my back recently, embarrassingly, doing some bloody YouTube video, and it made me a bit immobile. I wasn't able to exercise, and I then wasn't able to go out and exercise, and I got really down. No, actually really quite down. Actually really, really quite down and dark. And I just realised that I'm someone that just has to be. It's no good just not drinking. You've got to go out and run. You've got, that little project that you wanted to write that thing. Just do it. You will feel better afterwards. There are a lot of things that you sort of, sometimes it's just laziness that you can't be bothered to do. But once you do them, you get out the other side, you will feel better. Exercise is one. If you're creative, creating or just getting that thing done that's been bugging you can just make you feel better. A little bit of success in that day. But I've probably just gone on there for far too long.
Honestly,
but I just think you can't expect to just feel good because you've cut something out. I'm afraid you've got to sort of go and earn it. But that's okay. And really, I'm just going to use just running as an example. Like, I hope anyone listening isn't put off by, but I don't want to fucking go for a run. I get it. Find your own version of running. But whenever, if I've not run one day, I can't be bothered. I'm just too tired that day or whatever. And then I go for the run. The difference after I've ran, and I think, why didn't I run yesterday? That was nothing. I should have just ran. I would have felt better. Like, you always no one has ever, excluding injury, no one has ever gone for a run or an exercise and afterwards thought, I wish I'd have done that. I feel worse now. You will always feel better. You will always gain from it. You will always gain from doing that bit of work that you wanted to do, from phoning that friend. Company. I've got someone I know that's going through a very tough time at the moment, really understandably so. It's a really unfortunate situation. And she said, she's just not been in the mood to go and visit her or like just talk to her friends, go on the walk with her friends. And I'm like, you've got to. Just take your mind off that, even if it's just talking about something else. Just keep your head away from that, thinking about that thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's so well put, Sean. Honestly, I think you're absolutely right. I was having this conversation the other day that we don't deserve happiness or health. Actually, we don't deserve them. And you said it in your own words. We have to earn it, and whether that's through exercising or eating healthy or mindfulness, meditation, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think this is again. This is I went down this path when I started feeling this, and I was just very, because I'd been an athlete and all these other things. I was of the mindset that I'm not prepared to just put up with feeling like this, so I'm going to do something about it. So that led me down the path of realizing that in our physical bodies, things that we do elicit a physiological response, which means that there are chemicals that are released into our body, and these chemicals make us feel a certain way. And it's like, oh, okay, so now I can almost hack happiness. And that's what you're talking about there. You know, by being disciplined and structured, it makes us feel happy. You know, if we feel ordered, organized, a little bit more in control.
Yes.
You know, when we exercise, we have that endorphin rush. These endorphins make us feel happy, serotonin, dopamine, these sorts of things that we can control these things in the same way that if our mind is scattered and all over the place, if we meditate for half an hour, then we start to quiet that down, and you can physically feel that happening as you're meditating. So I think it's so true. And I just wanted to touch on something as well from your story and how you were sharing what you've been through. It was actually, so I recorded a podcast last night with Katarina Johnson-Thompson, you know, the heptathlete. She's
No, I'm terrible. I'm so shut off from the world, mate. I'm terrible. I don't know anything. I'm clueless. Sorry.
no,
Inform me.
I can relate though, mate. Honestly, like when I read about the Strictly thing, I was just like, oh, how, like, yeah, I'm same as you. I
Yeah.
just have my head in the sand trying to build this business, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to be happy in myself as well, like you. So,
Yeah.
no, look, she's unbelievable, mate. She's the world #1 ranked heptathlete. She won the world champs in 2019, and she was the kind of understudy to Jess Ennis, who obviously was, you might have heard of her, who smashed it as a heptathlete and
Okay.
won the gold at all the Olympics and all that stuff. So she came up.
What are you saying? I don't even know the what?
The heptathlete, the
What's
heptathlon.
that?
Sorry, she's a heptathlete who does a heptathlon. So in the
What's that? I
Olympics,
don't even know I've heard of the Olympics.
okay, that's a good start, right? So in the Olympics,
I've heard of the Olympics. Something, yeah. Someone set something on fire at the beginning. There's a torch.
yeah,
There's a big party at the beginning. The Queen
in
jumped out of a
Athens.
helicopter with James Bond. Something, yeah.
The real James Bond, the real Queen.
Yeah.
That was the London one. No, so the heptathlon is the female event where the athlete has 7 disciplines. So across 2 days, they compete in 7 events. So hurdles, shot put, javelin, high jump. So they're the ultimate athlete basically. And the men's version is the decathlon, which is 10.
I see. Right.
So she's absolutely unbelievable. Basically, she's great, and I hope that the Olympics are this year, so hopefully she wins gold, and that'll be a nice thing for us to watch. But she said, because she's only just started winning, you know, she's a long way down her journey. As a winner, you never consider the feelings of the loser. You know, when you win the event, you never even start to consider how the person who lost feels, just because that's our perception. We're very wrapped up in our own life, our own experiences, our own world, and we think the world revolves around us, and we never consider what other people are going through. So if this does nothing else, I hope that it just spreads some awareness of the humanity of the situation, like the human element of what happened, and the fact that you're a human being. You're not a comic from the TV. You're not a comic from a TV show. You're a human being who went through something, and if it does nothing else, a bit else of that.
Yeah. It's strange, isn't it? Because you never envision. Certainly I didn't. You never envision that you're going to be. Who would envision that they were going to be the person on the front cover of the tabloids, the front page, and it sort of completely changed my outlook on those people that you see on the front pages, of which I was one for a glimpse. You know, like, what's it like for them? This. And like, so usually as well, when the person's being portrayed as like the the villain, and sometimes you're like, but what about what they're going through right now? That's what I don't know. Sometimes I just also think it's like none of anyone's business. Why is it on the front page of this thing? But that's a different thing, you know. Then that comes down to free speech or whatever. And if people didn't want it, they wouldn't buy it. Yeah, but I don't know. Like, it's like that bit Gervais says, I don't know why I'm doing a Gervais loving. This is just a coincidence.
Please,
but in the extras Christmas special, where Andy Millman says, like, if they something a lot, I don't know extras as well, but, you know, if there weren't pictures or photographs of, up a celebrity skirt, would the public be asking for it? No. And I think that's true. I don't think any. It's so weird. This
Yeah,
system. I mean, it's too big a thing, but it's so
it is
weird.
weird.
This system. These things that make money off these
Yeah.
people and their lives and lies and oh, who gives a fuck?
Well, sadly, some people do, don't they? They've got nothing else.
Who
Clearly, to
are
think
these
about.
people?
But do you know what,
It's
Sean? There was a moment, right, where this is obviously a long time ago, but news was just news, and they talked about positivity. And then there was a moment, I read about this a while back, where like a devastating storm struck. I think it was in America or something like this, and they reported on all the terrible things that had happened because it had taken over this town and all this other stuff. And they suddenly realised that sales went through the roof of this paper, and then that's when it was born, really, that negativity sells, and that's what people started talking about. And you never see, I can't watch the news on the TV because there's never anything positive. It just leaves you feeling depleted. So
yeah.
Let's talk about Gervais again.
Yes, exactly.
Sure, mate. Look, I really, really appreciate that. I think people are going to get so much from that. And just to wrap the kind of the more mental health led part of this conversation up, if people are suffering, what would you suggest that they do?
I think that first of all, what you have to do. So I try and consider what I'm going to say, but I think confront it. I know it's obvious. You're saying, well, what are you going to do? Sean, what do you think they should do? And I'm saying they should do something. Thank you. I'm sure, but confront, this can be taken on, and things that you can do are talking to friends. My friends, certainly when I was going through it, were there for me, and even just to take my mind off it. But you've got to talk to people and just getting it out. Therapy's great. Therapy's really helped me. I feel better after a session. Because you've got to, if you speak to friends or you speak to a professional, you've got to articulate your feelings. You've got to choose the words that are going to express how you feel and what you think. And in that selection, you can really find what you honestly think and feel. And so I think talking is massive, but I'm a big, as is obvious, but I'm a huge fan of exercise. And I really think that physical change, running and releasing those endorphins, can just give you that positive outlook on even a situation that, I've had days where I'm dreading something really, I'm anxious about it, a normal sort of anxiety about a meeting or something, or some, as we've been in lockdown for so long, some sort of online thing that I've got to do, and I'm scared about what they'll think of me and who to be in this meeting. I go for the run, and afterwards those problems are gone, and I feel more upbeat about it and more carefree. Now that's just me, and I appreciate that might not work for everyone, but I think it will help a little bit. So I'm sort of repeating myself, but talking and exercising. But I think you can. I do believe that how you feel and you feel might be this endless feeling of negativity, and there's a good word, disconsolate, which means to sort of people that they're sort of they're helpless, disconsolate, like you can't even help them. I know it feels like that we can feel disconsolate, but I think your situation can always be improved, but you've got to get up and you've got to fight it.
That's brilliant. Thank you, mate. That's absolutely brilliant. Are you happy to jump into some of the performance side of like when you're a comedian, when you're standing on stage? Yeah.
I would much prefer to.
Scrap all that. Let's just talk about this now.
Yes.
Sean, as I've said before, mate, I'm a huge admirer of all you've done in comedy. I'm a massive fan of stand-up, and yeah, I think you're absolutely superb. So it would be interesting to hear. I think, again, we've spoken with Olympians, world champion boxers, Super Bowl winners, Premier League footballers, all these performers who have their own take on what it takes to perform at their best. I'd love to hear what you think makes a good comic.
Oh, wow. First of all, it's hilarious to be put in the same category as like Olympic winners, and I'm like, yeah, I'm up there with these guys. Yeah, I'm part of the club. No, what? Oh God, what it takes to be? Oh God, you know what? I think that you can have as much natural ability as you want, but I'm afraid I think in this day and age, from my experience, I've been going about, I hate saying this, I think I've been going about 15 years now.
Wow.
We won't count the COVID year. That doesn't count. I've been going 14 years. Is that you know you've got to commit to this, and you've got to give it your all. It sounds so obvious. I suppose I'm talking to my younger self. I just sort of felt like I had this, that it felt in a way that it came so easy to me that I didn't really have to do the work. Like, like if which is cool. That's good. So it's like a humble brag, really, what I'm
Mm.
saying. But it didn't. I didn't. I lost that obsessiveness that I had as a teenager, and as a child, actually. In fact, with comedy, that obsessiveness sort of went, and I think you've got to be obsessed if you want to do. I think you've
I
got to
agree.
be obsessed if you want to do something
When did you lose
special.
that?
When did I lose that obsessiveness? Do you think?
Mm.
I think that's all stuff that I'm dealing with as
Right.
well. But I think I made some bad career. But before Strictly, I
Mm.
think I made some bad career decisions that really knocked my enthusiasm for comedy. I forgot what it was I liked about it, and I was doing these jobs that I'm very, hey, for fuck's sake, man, I'm very grateful. In the last 2.5 years since I've had Strictly, I've lost a lot in my life. So I sort of things that I took for granted at the time, I'm looking back now and going, fucking hell, like I can't. Why did I just enjoy that? Why did I just enjoy that? You were earning like ridiculous money in your 20s, and you were on telly. It was cool. Who cares if it wasn't the fucking Lost in Translation film that you wanted to be in with Bill Murray? Why don't you just enjoy it? Stop taking yourself so seriously. But at the time, unfortunately, it did. I just sort of thought, why am I doing this? This isn't who I am. And I didn't feel like what I was doing on telly really had any relation to me as a person. Really sort of, in some ways, pretentious problems. But so I sort of lost the enthusiasm for it all. I became quite ashamed of what I was doing on telly, and it meant that I was sort of slightly embarrassed when I got up on stage. I wasn't as confident as I was, and then obviously I did Strictly Come Dancing, and that that was like, that was like a Hiroshima. Just, there you go. You think that was bad? Well, have this. Now try getting on stage. So I think to go back to be more positive about it, give it your all.
Mm.
Give it your all. I think there were years that I didn't give it my all, and
Do you think you were naturally talented? You said that it came quite easy. You had your success pretty quickly, and it came quite easy. Were you naturally a great comic, and that's why it became quite easy for you?
I'm not kidding. Like you are. We can talk. We can talk about Strictly, and go into as much depth as you want. You are not getting me to go online and publicly say I think I was a great comic. That is not. That is
No,
not going
sure.
out there online.
Do you know why I ask that? Do you know why I ask that? Because
Why?
there's absolutely a link between natural talent and people
Yeah.
that worked really fucking hard for it. And I was a good football player. and I probably felt quite entitled, which is why I never made it as a professional. In my opinion, I felt like I deserved to be there,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
because of that, I butted head with a lot of coaches and managers. My attitude wasn't great, and that's why I don't think I made it as far in the game as I could have. And I feel like the ones who don't feel entitled, the ones who perhaps don't have as much natural talent, who just work their socks off, have a different attitude, which means that you said obsession, right? They've got a different obsession to it as well. They don't expect things to work out for them. So when things don't, then more likely to push through. And I think I've learned from that, and I can now apply that obsessiveness and that hard work to this and what I'm doing now. But
Yeah.
I feel like, you don't have to say that you're a naturally gifted comic. I think you don't have
No,
to
but what?
agree with
Yeah,
that.
I know, and I'm not going to, because I cannot be bothered with the onslaught when that gets quoted. No, but I was, this. The last show that I did, called After This One I'm Going Home, which was about the whole. Well, it was about a big aspect of the Strictly debacle. Was that I said it was like that line from the Goodfellas. As far back as I can remember, I've always wanted to be a comedian.
Mm.
Like it was. That's just all I know, and that's what I thought. Like I think I can say I thought like a comic when I was a kid. I thought about what would that. It's so weird when I look back. I was at school, at college, before I was a comedian, thinking I think that bit would work. I think that bit would work. Listening to other people going, if they had said it like that, and I don't mean comedians. I mean like at college, someone says something on a break, and I think if they'd said it like that, I think that would have worked better. So yeah, there was a sort of an unlearned. And it was learned because it was obsessed, because I would go to comedy clubs on my own. I would watch Lee Evans' The Ultimate Experience back to back. I went and saw Liar Liar 8 times at the
Great
ABC
film.
Cinema in Brighton.
What a
My favourite
film.
Jim Carrey comedy. Underrated. So underrated. It's brilliant. But
The Claw.
the the claw. The pen is blue. The pen is blue. The goddamn pen is blue. But the the yes, you began, as it sounds like you did. You were allowed some, on those early years of doing it for me professionally. I leant back on that. I relaxed in, well, I didn't even need to do the work. I've lived this. I am a comedian, and then
Mhm.
I watched, like you say, the people that were grafting a lot more, and then suddenly, they're selling what they're selling, and you're going, him? I came from him. He sucked. How did he? What? Yeah. So,
It was good though. Do you know what? In that period that I'm thinking of, when you were professional in your 20s, it was great to what, like, I again, I don't watch huge amounts of TV, but back then I watched more. So the panels and the sketch shows and all this stuff, and you just stood out on all of them, mate. Above all the other comedians. Your
wow.
probably your quick thinking and wit, but like, it's just, that's obviously what allowed you to go to heights very quickly as well. You stood out among a group of comics, and you were on every single panel or comedy show, and it was amazing to watch. I wonder whether, again, from that, when you were with other professionals, and also from your younger years when you were analysing how people were delivering jokes, even if it was in wherever it was,
Yeah.
what makes a good joke for you? Like, what are the sort of key things that need to be there for a joke to work or a bit to work?
I think, wow, there's so many things, but I think I was actually recording a comic. Okay, what my this is my taste. This is my taste. It goes back to this natural ability we're talking about. I think there are well, I was going to say there are two types of comic. There are not two types of comic. There's loads of types of comic, whatever. But one of the two types of comic that you'll get, a couple of the types of comic that you'll get are the comic that will sit down, with the laptop open, the pad, and there'll be a sort of template for how to make the funny routine and make the joke, right? And so it's like a maths equation.
Mm.
And I think, and I might be wrong, but me and my fellow comedian friends talk about this. I think I can hear when a joke has been worked out, right? I think I can hear that, where I go like, you sat down, and it comes to the hard work we're talking about.
Mm.
It's what you should, it's what you should be doing. But I feel like I can hear that they worked that out, that the setup was in a green color and the punchline was in a yellow color, and they used different colored pens, and it's amazing and it's great, and that I really respect that. But what I love more than anything, and there are someone like Mark Steele. You might not have. Do you know who Mark Steele is? No. Mark Steele is a legend of British comedy. Now he's sort of done. He is on telly. He's on Have I Got His View, and he's had his own series and stuff. He's mainly can be heard on Radio 4 with his own series. But Mark Steele, I know Mark well. When you're talking to Mark in person, you're talking to Mark on the phone, you could literally take what he says and thinks on the phone and put it on stage. You wouldn't tell the difference. It's It's just real. He really thinks what he's saying. That for me is my favourite. When I hear a comic and I think he thinks that or she thinks that, there's hardly any fucking work's been done there. This person is playing this person on stage. That is them. And Mark Steele is I don't think anyone would dispute that, one of the most authentic voices in this game, in this country. Really is where my knowledge lies, my dwindling knowledge of this business. But it is that when it feels like they really think it. There's a guy I'll give you just an example. Now, I'm not going to do it a disservice, because actually I'm not going to do this a service or justice. I'm going to do it a disservice, is what I mean. Because I heard this secondhand, but there's a guy who I don't really know. We follow each other on Instagram. He's a comedian called Josh Pugh. And he's brilliant, right? He's really brilliant. Just this brilliant comic mind. My mate told me a bit that he was doing on an online gig about how he thinks that if he was Prime Minister, he'd be really gutted with living in 10 Downing Street. Like he doesn't think that house matches the job. It's so true. It just does it. You look at that just a little house with a black. They don't even have a front garden. You know what I mean? Like the house, and I just, the way he's looked at that, it just cracked me up. It really cracked me up. This sort of strange angle that he's coming at the 10 Downing Street with. And I said to Paul straight away, I said, from Josh's work, and I've met him a couple of times online and stuff, and I just said, I believe he thought that. And what I mean by that is, I don't think Josh sat down with a pen and went, right, okay, I need some Prime Minister jokes, right. Where's the pen? Right, okay, so Boris Johnson, right, where's he live? Right, 10 Downing Street. Oh, that's a weird place to live. Actually, yeah, that doesn't quite match up with the job. Yeah, I don't think that happened. Maybe it did. And he's created the illusion, which is amazing. But I believe that he was sitting at home and they were watching a conference and he went, fucking imagine you're Prime Minister, you live there. Not even number 1. So then number 10. Like, I imagine that he really thought that. And for me, that's what gets me going. When I crack up if I believe that the person thinks that. So does that make any sense to you?
It completely makes sense, because it's authentic in that case, isn't it? You haven't strategized or
exactly.
Yeah. But I wonder, do you know what's coming up for me when you're talking about that? I wonder then, because I'd put you in that category, by the way. I'd put you in the same category as that. So I wonder.
I certainly try to. I would like to put myself in that category. In that, I tried that. I'm being very facetious when I'm on stage. I'm aware of that, but it is a real voice in my head. Do you know what I mean? It is. I am really moaning about that thing that has occurred to me at some point. I've not sat down and gone, how can I get the most out of the Hoover? What's my Hoover bit? It's like the Hoover has fucked me off.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on. What are you going to say?
No, I'm agreeing with you completely, mate. I just think what was coming up for me was that if you're that person, the authentic version who genuinely believes these things and then brings that to their performance
Yeah,
and
yeah,
their
yeah.
stage act, it's harder then to separate yourself from criticism, separate yourself from scrutiny around your performance. If you've created it, you can kind of go, oh well, I use that mathematical equation you talked about to make that
Mm.
work, and maybe it didn't quite work this time. But when it's like it's authentically you, it probably feels more personal.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point, isn't it? Because you're sort of you're giving some of, yeah, you're giving yourself on
Mm.
stage, whereas I don't know. It's a really good point. Because I have thought the same, but I've not been in that man's shoes, as it were. So like, I have one of my best friends is a gagsmith called Mark Simmons, who's brilliant. I might ask him that.
Mm.
Like when they don't like it, do you take it personally? Because it's not like they don't like you; they
Mm.
just don't like the jokes. But when you're representing yourself, it feels like they don't like you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things that comes with being that type of comic or that type of performer, or yeah, we find our inspiration in different places. I'm similar to you. Like I talk about stuff that have happened to me, and I don't get trolled necessarily. And do you know what? I've been trolled recently a few times, which is pathetic. It's what one of them was. Well, there was three on, which is laughable to you, I'm sure. But there was three that were about my spelling. There was one who hammered me. It's ridiculous. There was one who hammered me the other day for not having a massive YouTube following. Who does
Oh
this guy
God.
think he is? Yeah, there was one who I was really fortunate to get in. Waitrose did a piece on the podcast, and it was like a big 2-page piece, and I posted about it, and someone just was like, "Oh, me," another person just talking about themselves. I was like, I'm trying to celebrate my success here, but yeah, it does feel personal, and you've got to kind of like try and just remove yourself from that, haven't you? But um,
Yes.
sure. Do you know what? Look, I'd love to come full circle, and you're talking about some of the things that are kind of crucial to be a good comic. What made The Office genius then, in your
We
opinion?
got. Oh, we're going to talk about The Office. Well, I think I've said it, haven't I? I mean, I think I tell you something that I said to my missus the other day. Was it my? I think I said it to my girlfriend. The American Office. She likes I like the American Office as well, but and some people prefer the American Office, and
I
fine.
can't watch it.
So, right, you're one of those. Okay, I can watch it. I can watch it. But I think the difference is when I'm what the American Office, which is brilliantly performed and written, etc. But whenever I'm watching the American Office, I'm aware I'm watching a sitcom. And when I'm watching the UK Office, I just believe it. I don't.
Mm,
I don't think I'm watching a sitcom. I believe it, and I'm always when I'm watching the US series, I'm aware somewhere that I'm watching a sitcom, and I just think The Office jumps. It jumps that. It's genius, isn't it?
uh, uh,
It's lightning in a bottle.
mm,
Everything just at the everything at the right time. As well. You've got to think culturally, it was at the right time as well. What it was sort of a lot of the stuff that the Brent's character was. That what this white man living in a city outside of London, his, his relationship in his head with the BAME community. It's just amazing, and it was just the right time. I don't think you could make The Office as it was then now. I'm not sure society would allow. I might be wrong, but it might not allow for two white men to be making the sort of, even though it was jokes about that white man being like that, I'm not
mm,
sure it would be allowed to be them.
yeah.
So it all just happened at the perfect point. Do you know what I mean? It was just everything. The fact. Okay, here's another one. Is that they were so lucky that they had a producer or an executive that allowed them to cast that with the unknown.
Mm.
You know, how fortunate they were. You just don't have the same program if we had known who those actors were. If Martin Freeman, Martin Freeman now, Lord of the Rings and Fargo, and we know who he is. That would not work now. If that was Martin Freeman from Lord of the Rings, it was a fact that he was a complete unknown. Mackenzie Crook, Gareth,
Yeah.
Dawn, it was just it just made it so believable, and I can't believe they were allowed to make a sitcom with all of these unknowns in it that contributed so much to the quality of this program. And I think again it happened with the other mockumentary, well, two of them, This Country, which is incredible and made stars out of its performers, and what's the other one? People Just Do Nothing. Again, that these programs, it makes stars. To me, it's so obvious because people believe it. I get a bit tired of seeing someone I recognise in a sitcom. I'm like, yeah, the guy from it's the actor, the famous guy playing the part. I can't believe it's a sitcom. I'm watching a sitcom, but watching these people that you don't recognise, you completely immerse yourself in it. Yeah. I could bang on about The Office forever. It's just it's a masterpiece. Simple as.
Yeah. Did you watch Life After Death? Is it called Life After Death?
Afterlife.
Sorry, yeah. Did you watch Afterlife?
I did watch Afterlife. Yeah.
Yeah, because I found that quite difficult at the beginning, but by the end, I absolutely loved it. I mean, it's so different from The Office, right? But it was just like, given what we've been talking about today, I thought it was absolutely superb.
I love Rick. I love Ricky Gervais, and as it like when he's being. Funnily enough, maybe I'm just getting back. I'm going through a Gervais period in my life again, but listening to him and in interviews, and the guy made The Office, and so if he's going to make a new sitcom, you're going to watch it, and he's just or maybe to me, he's so watchable. The man is so watchable. His accent, I don't know what it is. There's something scientists should look into his voice, his look. He's just so affable, and I think relatable. I think coming from a working class background or lower middle class, I'm not sure of Reading, and maybe that speaks to me a little bit. That you're not watching another public school guy that's friends with everyone in the television world. All of that's a different thing. You're watching someone who from a background like yours. That's always going to be where you're going to feel at home the most, isn't it? So
we're talking about a bit of masterpiece and genius and stuff, and I know you said, which is fascinating actually, you're talking about like that period in your career when you're doing really, really well, and I think this is there's a balance, isn't there, when you strive to achieve great things. How can you remain present and be grateful for where you are when you really want to do amazing stuff?
Yeah.
So I'd just like to. I think it'd be a nice way to sort of finish the conversation to talk about when you had a peak moment. If you look back on your career and you think about whether that's a peak moment or a great joke that you just felt landed and that you loved, like a time or a moment that was really, really positive for you.
I think for me, I went. So one that comes to mind immediately is, and there are many others, but for me, I went to watch Jack D live when I was 16, 17, probably 17 at the Brighton Dome, and then and had the VHSs and whatnot, and then in my early 30s was then asked to be in a Jack D sitcom by Jack D. That I don't think they wrote the character for me. But they had me in mind. Jack and Pete Sinclair who wrote it. That's when we talk about dreaming and dreams coming true. Oh my god, I watched Jack D growing up, and now I'm in his sitcom and consider him a friend. So that's Jack D, man. It's just meet your heroes. That's what I would say. Meet them. In fact, I think I've met fucking all of them.
Who was one of your biggest inspirations then? Jack D, you said.
Well, Jack and Lee Evans, and actually, I've not met Gervais. Okay. But Jack and Jim Carrey, I've met, and Lee Evans. I met Jim Carrey. Very strange, in a very strange. It's a.
Go on.
I managed to get. I was in Montreal at the Just for Laughs comedy festival, and he had just accepted a Lifetime Achievement Award, and I worked out that at the end of the ceremony, where he was from me, I was just stood at the back watching, but he went and sat down at the front, and I worked out that when the ceremony ended, I could quickly rush through this crowd and just tell him I love him and shake his hand, and so the ceremony ended, and I'm bombing it, and like all the people are walking towards me, and I'm trying to bomb it through, and then David Baddiel stops me, and I met David briefly in Montreal, very nice man, and got along with him. And he says that Jim Carrey saw a bit of his show and that David might be able to help me meet him. So now Baddiel's with me, and me and Baddiel are storming through this crowd that heading out in the opposite direction, and we're sort of just about to get to Jim Carrey, and then his sort of security guard gets him on stage, and they walk off into the backstage. And I sort of think that's the end of it. And then Baddiel just grabbed me and pulled me up onto the stage. I've said this before. It was the sexiest he'd ever been. Incredible. He grabbed me. It was so sexy. Baddiel just pulling me along the stage. And we get backstage, and then it's sort of cornered off by the bouncers, by the security guards. And, you can't get in. Jimmy Carr's waiting there. Jimmy Carr is waiting there, and Jimmy Carr, David says, look to Jimmy, look, Sean loves Jim Carrey. He's saying that he has to meet him. This is the reason he does it. What can you do anything? And Jimmy Carr, imagine being this guy. I've always wanted to be this guy in life, but I'll take it being the guy with this guy. Jimmy Carr turns to the security guard, points at us two, and says, "They're with me." Imagine getting to be that guy. So now we're with Jimmy Carr. We walk in and we go to this small green room space where Jimmy Carr introduces me to Jim Carrey, and I was so starstruck. I felt nauseous. I couldn't believe that what had happened. That I was there with this guy that had had such an impact on my life that I forgot that my phone had died. So I couldn't take a selfie, but I was so starstruck that I just didn't think to say to Jimmy or David, could you take a selfie, please, and text it to me. I was just so. I'll show you. Wait there. I've done this before, but I'll show you this. Right.
Okay.
So instead, wait there. Give me a second. Okay. This is a framed photo that I have on my desk where I write, and it just says, "You met Jim Carrey."
Oh, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Almost as good as the real thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe I should draw it, but
yeah.
There you go. So amazing to have met everyone really. But I
Yeah,
know
that's
Jack,
great.
I know Jack, and working on that sitcom Bad Move, which unfortunately came to an end after a couple of Christmas specials, which I'm not just saying. Obviously, I was gutted because I loved playing the character. He was a rock star sort of producer, and I had him in my mind. He was from Camden, and I got to play someone that wasn't me, which I always
Mm.
prefer.
Yeah.
It was like, spoke like this. His name was Grizzo. It's like, all right, Jack, how you going? You good? Nice to be here. I've got this new idea for a record. You should check it out. And it was just so much fun being him. I'm gutted I don't get to play him anymore. It must be weird it must be really weird when Friends ends or
Mm.
whatever, and those guys don't get to play those characters
Yeah.
anymore. Because I do, yeah, you do end up missing him. I do miss playing Grizzo, and I think that in series 2 I'd fallen into him a little bit more and was a bit more comfortable. In series, I think I would have. I think the sitcom would have gone on to be massive. I think they cut it off too short, but of course I did.
Yeah. Well, no, it's funny, mate. We
Uh,
talk about the Office, and that's the same thing. When you cut it like that, it leaves people sometimes wanting more, right? Rather than going on forever like Friends. And they're
yeah,
type like the challenge of those guys as well. You get typecast when you're in that kind of character, or you can potentially be.
yes,
Um, Mate, that's brilliant, man. It's so great to hear, Sean. I appreciate you being so open and sharing everything. And yeah, I don't want this to sound condescending at all, but it's incredibly brave to talk about this stuff. It's hard to be vulnerable and share that kind of side of you. So honestly, I really, really appreciate it. I think the work you do with Calm is great as well, and supporting them. And I think, and
thank
I,
you.
I know people are going to get so much from this. So thanks, mate.
I just hope that. I hope that the people of it, that anyone listening enjoys it, and I suppose I make a plea to whoever is listening to this, or a journalist or whatever, just let's try and keep it contained within this. I don't really want to be in the papers with whatever I've said spun
Yeah.
out of context or whatever. But that remains to be. We'll
Well,
see,
look,
won't we? We'll see.
yeah, yeah, right. We will see. But look, I mean, it's a shame that that's where it has to take. Your mind has to go there now. It's a shame that that's where it's led. And yeah, look, I
Well,
mean,
life.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look,
We'll
Sean, thank you
see.
so much, mate. I'm gonna stop
Thanks,
the
man.
recording in a second.
Cool.
I'll stop the recording so I can chat to you without
Yeah.
it recording.